The striking groups continued their demands for better working conditions and payment of their Tier 2 pensions. The Legon branch of the Teachers and Educational Workers Union TEWU and the Senior Staff Association say they will soon close all lecture halls of the university, which will affect students currently writing exams.
All the kids, they are not kids, students of University of Ghana, yes. Their parents, wherever that they work, they also have a condition of service. If something is going on wrong there, definitely they will also lay their tools. This is my working environment. I hold a condition of service. This is what is supposed to be done. There are managers in place. If the managers are tampering with a condition of service, we will draw our services. And that is it. No exams will go on. All the examination halls will be locked up. All the necessary tools that will be used for the examination will be locked up. Yes.
But some lecture halls have already been shut down, forcing classes of some first-year students either be cancelled or moved online. Here's a student who spoke to us in camera.
For the lecture halls, some are working currently and most of them have also been closed. So for instance, there's a lecture hall at JQB that they have lectures there. Some have been closed and some are working. The level 100, for instance, I talked to a lady who is in level 100 who I asked whether she went to class yesterday, and she informed me that when she went to class, they were told that the class has been cancelled purposely because of the strike. We are having a congregation for exam. We are a congregation for graduation. And some were going for their gowns, and they were told that the driver to bring the gowns is on strike. The driver to bring the gowns is on strike. So I just imagine. So sad things in there, just something that you just have to just ignore and just accept the fact.
The striking groups would later have a standoff with the police, leading to one of them being arrested.
You are fighting with us. You are fighting University of Ghana. You are fighting with University staff.
The striking groups say they remain resolute in their demands and will use all legal means to ensure their concerns are addressed.
Welcome back on the AM show. We get into our big stories now. As you can see right behind me, strikes, industrial actions. Over the last few weeks, it has been threats of strikes, and more threats of strikes. The Senior Staff Associations, Universities of Ghana, have already embarked on that, the two-pronged bit. The Senior Staff Association and then the Federation, they have already started an industrial action. Recently, we've heard from TEWU as well on that same road. And guess what? The TUC, the Trades Union Congress, also has threatened on the back of a 15% hike in electricity tariffs based on VAT. They are also saying you go down that road and we shall also have something to say about that via a strike. But where do we go from here? What do we do in respect of that situation? We have our guests joining us to share their thoughts. Senor Ajabeng is a labor consultant and HR specialist. He joins the conversation. We also have Mark Cranche, General Secretary of TEWU. We'll be engaging him shortly. Mr. Ajabeng, a very good morning to you, sir. Thank you for joining the conversation.
Good morning, Ben.
Right. What do you make of the recent trend? It's just the start of the year, in fact, the very first month, and we're seeing all of these actions when it comes to laying down tools and the threat of same. Now, you look at the numbers, Senior Staff Association, Universities of Ghana, together with the Federation. That's huge. Then you look at TEWU coming on board, the teachers as well, and now the TUC, a much bigger body. What do you make of this trend?
Well, good morning, Ben, and your listeners. I think you've given a very fair background of the situation, which can be described as worrying and also chaotic. And I think it is because of two reasons. First, that we are in an election here, and normally, if you check the trend of the industrial actions, you realize that in election years, strike actions always rise, the number rises. It is because, workers normally believe that they are running out of time to have issues that they might have been discussing on the table for a couple of years settled before, election comes and then the current government leaves power. And also because of the economic times that we are in, and the difficulties that every citizen seems to be facing. And I believe the unions are also facing these kinds of economic hardships, and their members. So I think that is why we are here. And I think that it is not the right place to be at all.
It's not the right place to be. A quick question. Do you feel all of this could have been forestalled? The last time, for example, and UTAG is not, they have not embarked on such, an action yet, but UTAG and TUTAG, for example, have threatened as well to lay down their tools. The other day I was having a conversation with the national president. When you look at all of these groupings, education and general workers in the system, do you feel there is something that should have been done that has not been done, for which reason we've ended up here? Because you have the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission, you have the Labor Commission, you have the Ministry for Employment and Labor Relations. But is it that they simply do not get things right every electoral year or ahead of every electoral year? Just what is your thinking on that?
Well, you see that these actions are quite synchronized. So it's a number of actions happening at the same time. Then that means that the issues in discussion or under contention or in contention are issues that have been there for a while, at least for maybe beyond 18 months, 24 months. There's been discussions on the table. So when discussions on the table delay and there is no movement, what we call a deadlock, then these actions will happen to force the other party's hand to act. And so I would just say that this would be happening because of the expectations of the employees not being met to this point, or the inaction of the other party, that is from the government side, not doing what the unions have been asking. And that is why we will reach this deadlock where it will now, move into the issue of industrial action. And what should have been done? Well, the offer on the table and the contention of each party is as good as their ability to agree on a settlement. And where there is no settlement, then each would start looking at either technical, tactical, and legal strategies available to them to be able to get the other party to do their bidding. So yes, it has to be settled one way or the other, and I hope that this message that has been strongly sent by the unions will have the government side call them and sit and try to actually resolve the problems once and for all.
Well, if you look at UTAG and TUTAG, for example, such talk has not culminated in what they would have expected. For example, the market, peggings that they have spoken of in the past. But that's another issue. When you look at all of these together, though we are technically not talking about UTAG and TUTAG, but their issues remain. So I want to rope them in. If you look at UTAG, TUTAG, if you look at the Senior Staff Association and the Federation, if you look at TEU, if you look at the TUC, what would be your holistic, global assessment of labor right now? Yes, you've picked apart some of the issues about it's an electoral year. Sometimes they would also want to capitalize and sneak in what they can before another administration starts because it could be difficult. But how would you assess labor right now? Are they strong? Are they in a good place? Are they overdoing it? Are they merely taking advantage of the times? What would your reaction be to that?
I think that labor has always been strong and will always be strong. I even think, some of us who are process workers in the industry even think that over the few years past, labor has not been too strong. And so it is interesting to see that labor is rising at this moment. There have been so many triggers in the past few years that could have caused labor, for example, to rise. But somehow, I think that there was very good dialogue on the table, and hence labor was contained, labor was content, happy, maybe not too happy, but at least content with the situation until now. So I'll say that the labor front may be looking very agitated currently, but it's been fairly stable, and labor can be rated as having done extremely well in understanding and cooperating and contending with the actions of the government side, especially regarding issues of taxation and also especially issues of pensions, because the pensions issue, I remember the Tier 2 issues started as far back as 2018 when the union started questioning government to make due on the payment of the Tier 2 pension fund and so on and so forth. So I think I would rate labor quite high, but we are at a place where now we need to try and resolve the issues instead of letting it go on and then finally affecting, the educational system, which is struggling at the moment as well. So I think that I would not fault labor too much. Maybe they've been pushed so hard into a corner, and when you push unions too fast, certainly you would get a reaction at some point.
All right. And how would you rate government strategy in dealing with these labor issues in all of this? You can take them apart one by one, or you can put them together. How would you rate government's positioning, strategy in dealing with all of this?
So, then if you ask me, I think that I would say that especially the Minister for Labour has done so well over the 2 terms of the present administration. He's kept the labour front quite stable until now. And it is all because I know that it's all because there's been a lot of consultation going on at the background, and especially at the tripartite level, a committee level, where we've seen a lot of work done between the labour stakeholders. Unfortunately, the current situation started really from the taxation policy for 2024, and that started with TUC talking. And this is what happens in the industry. Once the leadership takes a position and starts agitating, then all the other arms of labor get the vim, if we could call it that way. It gets the motivation to also hit back and go stronger on what they've been demanding. And again, remember that if any other arm wishes to take any action, normally the leadership, which is the TUC, will try to come in and calm things down and control the situation. But when it is the leadership that now rises up, then everybody rises up with their own issues, then forming a pocket of a giant legal action that then comes hard, on the government side. So for now, I think that government strategy, which has worked regarding, deep consultations on and off the table, must start in earnest. And somehow government has to convince the union side about what they want to do and maybe meet them halfway somehow and get this thing settled. Other than that, I do not see the unions backing down easily. You'll find that the strongest and the most, I don't want to use the word intransigent in a negative way, but let me call it resilient. The most resilient unions have always been the teacher unions. And so when it is them that are agitating, it is an issue to work because they don't back down easily. Yeah.
Let me quickly bring in this bit. So in reaction to that, before I move on to my other guests, what should government be doing in the wake of these labor threats? Or is government doing enough?
I'm sure by now government is trying to engage the unions and their leadership in resolving the issues or giving some assurance. So those meetings have to go on in earnest. And maybe the parties may also need certain additional resources in terms of using consultants, using senior citizens, trying to sit down around the table and getting some form of agreement to end this. Because if it's the same faces that have been sitting around the table and arguing, still are the ones that are expected to go and sit and talk again, it will not work. So we need maybe new faces, additional resources, and also a bit of people with higher clout, if I should put it that way, coming in and trying to assuage the impressions on the union, so the union leadership, so that they can see some reason, get some assurances, and then they can call off the strike for the time being while deliberations continue. What I would advise, however, is that we may not want to attack this from a blaming point of view that these people are breaking the law, they don't have the right to do this. We have gone past right currently, because you find that whatever is happening because people believe they have the right so to be. And therefore, I think that dialogue should be the better way to go.
All right. Let me bring in TEWU's General Secretary. I'm talking about Mark Crunchy. He also joins the conversation. The Teachers and Educational Workers Union, they have joined the Senior Staff Association of Ghana and the Federation in an industrial action. Mr. Crunchy, a very good morning to you, sir.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for joining the conversation, and thank you for holding. You've heard the initial reactions that I've got from Mr. Ajabing, but I'd like to find out from you, while we already know, I'd like to know, why exactly did TEWU find it necessary to join the Senior Staff Association of Ghana in this industrial action?
Thank you very much, and let me say hi to your cherished listeners. TEWU found it necessary to join this very strike action because the subject on the consideration involves not only senior staff, but more importantly, the junior staff. And for that
Mr. Crunchy, if you could just speak a little louder. I'm struggling to hear you, sir.
Sorry, I'm saying that we found it necessary. Is it better now?
Yes, I think it's fine.
Okay, we found it necessary to join the strike action because the subject matter under consideration does not only affect the senior staff. More importantly, the TEWU members who are junior staff of the various universities. And so the issues are one, our overtime issues, which management, for that matter, the regulator, GTED, was trying to depart from what is contained in our conditions of service, which has been negotiated. And then the second one has to do with our Tier 2 pension fund that government is not releasing for our schemes to do the proper expense. So these matters affect virtually everybody on campus, including TEWU members. That is why we felt it necessary. We will not allow just the senior staff to fight this, but we have to join it so that at the end of the day, our members would also, their needs are taken care of.
Your actions are crippling some of these institutions. I've seen some members, I do not know whether yours are included, even at the frontage of the University of Ghana, the Okponglo entrance, preventing people from entering and all of that. I mean, it's bringing certain aspects of work in these institutions to a standstill. I don't know how you feel about that and what the reactions have been, but how also, even as you answer that, what would you say has been the reaction of government, the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission, the Labor Commission, the Employment and Labor Relations Ministry, to all of this? Has it been apt?
So it's unfortunate that we have to get to this level and where work has to be disrupted. The University of Ghana, for instance, is going through graduation ceremony, and yet we want to get our members off work. And this is actually affecting the work of the university. It is unfortunate, but we also cannot sit and say that because work has to go on, what our needs are will not be taken care of. And so we are only fighting for what is legitimately ours. In the case of response from government, I would say, well, some response has come up. Yesterday, for instance, the National Labour Commission summoned us and gave certain that as to what has to be done. Minister of Finance has written that we should come for a discussion on the 1st of February to discuss these pensions and other things. GTEC, who is the regulator of public universities, have also come up to say that they are reversing a directive they issued earlier on overtime to our various managements to stay action, respect what is in the conditions of service, until further discussions are held. So I would say, well, the responses have been positive, except that we have not concluded anything yet, and therefore we cannot unilaterally ask that our members go back to work. We have to meet them and then report on the outcome of yesterday's meeting with Labour Commission and the other subsequent meetings. We have to report to our members.
Right. Please hold for me. I'll come back to you briefly and to Mr. Ajabing as well. We also have joining the conversation the Vice President of the Trades Union Congress. I'm talking about Mr. Ken Kodua. Mr. Kodua, very good morning to you. Mr. Kodua,
good
please.
Morning.
Right. It's good to have you join the conversation. Now, even as we talk about BUTAG, TUTAG, we talk about TEU, the Senior Staff Association, then we're hit with the Trades Union Congress, large membership, and you are also threatening on a different angle. That is the 15% VAT to be slapped on electricity tariffs. Why now?
All right. Thank you very much. Let me say I'm the vice chair of the Trades Union Congress. The earlier unions you mentioned, the TEU and so on and so forth, are all part of the Trades Union Congress.
Right.
Why now? Because we can't sit down and allow this to happen before we come to react. It's important that we let the government know that this is a no-no for workers, and the earlier they decide on the right measure, the better. Let me add to this. TUC and its affiliated unions have, from the beginning, kicked against IMF coming into this country. In fact, history has shown us that any time IMF enters this country, workers are the group that are worst hit, and the poor in general. because all they bring on is to make things difficult for the ordinary Ghanaian. And so we are not surprised that this has come up at this time and is referenced to an IMF conditionality. So why now? Because this is the time. We must not allow this to happen before we come trying to correct it. And we are very resolved and determined to do anything possible to resist this imposition on the poor worker.
Now, you speak of IMF conditionalities, but the IMF conditionalities do not necessarily specify where or how we'll go about this. They specify that some actions ought to be taken to regulate certain sectors. But this and the quantum being slapped on it is the work of government. So you cannot necessarily blame the IMF. The IMF didn't tell us to slap 15% VAT on this. So how then do you react to government, the finance ministry in all of this?
Okay. Let me say that you can put this on squarely on the IMF. If you have read the letter issued by the Minister of Finance, it was quite explicit. This 15% VAT has been on our books since 2013. So how come no other government felt the need to implement this until now? So let's not pretend around it. These are part of the measures government must do to assure IMF that it can raise the needed revenue to support the loans we are taking.
Yes, but Mr. Kranche, what even what you're saying corroborates what I am saying. I'm saying that, like, we are all fully aware, it has been on the books since, in fact, the past administration. It hadn't been implemented, yes. Okay? And even if you look at the timelines, we were not necessarily in the grips of an IMF program at the time. Then we come to this, period where now, though we had been in an IMF program at the tail end of that administration, gone out of it, we are back here. But I'm saying that whether IMF program or not, while the IMF may have its stipulations on revenue generation and how to go about it, they wouldn't come and force your hand and say, impose 15% on this. So whether it is because we're in a program or not, where do you lay the blame? Where do you lay the blame? And how do we address the issue? That's what I'm asking.
Right. The blame, obviously, is on all of us. It's on the government trying to use this medium to generate the needed revenue where it could have looked elsewhere or looked at other alternatives to raise this income. Also, it's on all of us. Also, if we keep quiet as citizens, things like this would never stop hitting us. But let me say, and very clearly, that is this the only way to raise the needed revenue that governments want? Have you looked around this country?
Mr. Kodia, can you hear me? Hello, Mr. Kodia.
You and I, the VAT.
All right, Mr. Kodia, we're losing you. The feed is not so good, Mr. Kodia, if you can hear me. So we're going to try to reconnect with you, see whether we can make it better or alternatively reach you on phone. Either way, but just stay with us with your train of thought. Of course, I heard a bit of what you were saying about the VAT and its imposition. I wanted to find out from him what all of this meant to workers within the TUC, because like he rightly mentioned, all the other groupings that we're speaking of, the U-tags and the 2-tags and the TEUs and the rest, still are members of the TUC as well, as much as I know. So it appears it is a two-pronged industrial action then, because on the one end, some of the members, which we've already mentioned, are up in arms, complaining about different things. UTAG about market premiums and others. Then you have the TEWUs and the rest complaining about tier 2 and other concerns. And then you have the umbrella body, the TUC, also complaining about the 15% VAT that has been threatened to be imposed on electricity tariffs. So you see that it's a conglomerate of issues. It's a huge problem we're dealing with right now. But before we get Mr. Kodria back on the line, and unless you can hear me, Mr. Kodria, can you hear me? All right, we're going to try to reach him on phone. Let me come to Mr. Kranche, General Secretary of TEU. When you look at everything that is happening, you would see that there is a thread running through of unhappiness on different fronts. But oftentimes the NLC would complain about labor breaching procedure here and there. As far as you are concerned, it's a question I would have posed to Senor, but since you are still with us, why do you think it is so, and what do you think has been done to avoid this phenomenon? Or they just sit and wait till it happens and then they complain?
Yeah, that's the sad aspect of this whole thing. Before senior staff embarked on the CASA action in the 17th of January, notices were served in December to the effect that if nothing was done, no engagement is done about these overtime issues and tier 2 pensions funds, we will embark on an industrial action. No attempt was made to engage us. And then we start the action. It is now that government is running health, etc., inviting us to meetings here and there. It gives an indication that as if the concerns of workers don't matter. And we are in this country where some are enjoying, others are not. But we are not complaining. We think that what is due us must be given to us. So when workers are agitating, my thinking is that government should at least listen to the concerns that workers are raising. You feel they don't listen enough? They don't listen enough. Otherwise, these agitations and these actions wouldn't have happened. We could have averted this situation.
Hold for me. Let me bring Mr. Kodria back. Mr. Kodria, can you hear me now?
Yes, please, I can hear you.
Right. Mr. Ken Kodria is Vice Chair of the TUC. So looking at how far we have come and this threat, is this something that you actually mean to carry out if this 1 week runs out? You've given government an ultimatum, right?
Yes, we have. And I can assure you that we will shut down every institution where our members are if government fails to listen to us. Is this the only medium government can raise funds or revenue to cushion its budget or assure IMF that it has what it takes to raise money? You and I pay VAT currently. We buy from the shops, we pay hotel bills, restaurant bills. Find out how much of that comes back to the government. Also find out how many MMDAs are owing GRA with withholding taxes. How many people in this country, and let me focus even on the political class, we see them all the time. Some of them work with you, they leave their employment, they become politicians, and they have so much to spend on campaign. Has somebody asked them what income are they earning and what taxes are they paying? So is it the poor worker who must always bear this hit? Also because this is the easiest way to collect the hanging fruit. But is that the right way to promote social development? So for us, we are very determined that we will not allow this to happen. Not only because it's going to affect the poor worker, but it's just not right.
Right.
It is just not right.
Mr. Kodia, remind us again, how strong is your membership? How large is your membership?
Oh, I can tell you that just the Public Service Workers Union, just one of the 22 unions, which has civil aviation, airport company, Gridco, VRA, just a few, just one union has 72. It's a massive agenda, and TUC need not only even strike, just one of its members to strike, and this country is down on its knees.
You know the implications of that for the same economy. For the same economy we're trying to boost. You know the implications of that, right?
But is it that in our quest to develop, we must allow the wrong things to happen to us? Somebody must speak and defend the poor worker, so that we all sit down on the round table and see which path is workable and in the best interest of the same Ghanaian leaders are trying to promote their socio-economic well-being.
And I'll pose this question to both of you. Now, when I sit here, I have to look at every aspect of a conversation we're having. Me, nowadays, even before this VAT is added, when you purchase electricity, for those of us on prepaid meters, it is mind-boggling. You purchase 200 cedis, 500 cedis, 300 cedis, and it is gone before you can even blink an eye. And I look at what equipment that I use, and I ask myself, how are others coping, right? So it's not that some of us don't feel what you're feeling. And VAT has not even been slapped on yet, which would mean that once it's slapped on, that's another, it's a whole different caboodle. But you do realize as well that if you push for government to move away from here, the 15% on VAT, they will definitely find somewhere else, and then we'll repeat the cycle of industrial actions. At least that is what we know. What is your understanding of that? How do you react to it? Because it appears you push them from one angle, they'll find another angle anyway.
Okay, let me say that there are so many other angles government can address this from, and the leakages in the system is the first place we point them to. Let's all see how we can block the leakages and get the same revenue that we would have gotten if we have slapped this 50% on the poor workers. So yes, there are so many options, and that is why government should have consulted, or will sit down and see which of the paths we need to take. So whatever path that we have to take, if we are able to succeed on this agenda, should be the one that will not add more burden to the poor worker. Like you just described, if your ECG prepaid gets finished very early, the implication is that you need extra money to be buying more. And the other, once you need more money, then your salary is affected. You can't go to your employer and say, employer, now I am buying so much prepaid, so increase my salary. So you squeeze your family. So options, yes, there are options, but we must all sit down and look at which option would be easier for all of us, yet will not bring any hardship to the ordinary Ghanaian.
For you, Mr. Kodia, just hold for me. Let me bring in Mr. Crunchy as well. For you, from where you sit with TEU, what do you think? Mr. Kodia is suggesting deal with the wastage first, corruption and all of that. But that is also a process, and we're in the grips of an IMF program, and we have to keep the economy going. As we keep getting money, there are restrictions and regulations we must go by. Which other areas do you agree with him on wastage, and which other areas do you feel government can address without necessarily burdening the people?
In fact, he hit the nail right on the head. We need to do a holistic review of our revenue, how we get it. It should not always be the case that because the worker would have to decrease salary and taxes have to be imposed. Let us do this, let us do that, let us do that. And that is not the best way to go. We in the TUC, and for that matter, organized labor, think that yes, let's bring all stakeholders to the table, let's brainstorm and find the best way that we can do to increase revenue. We mentioned leakage. How can we block out these leakages so that it returns into our revenue and get revenue shop? There are so many ways we can, and workers are ready to dialogue with government and get the best way possible. But surely, this is not an empty threat. If government will not listen and government will continue, then we're going to have a series of these strike actions and demonstrations. We think that there is a need for us to sit around the table. There is a need for us to all look at the issues holistically and see the best way of resolving it rather than using it through taxes.
Right. So let's look at this then. When you look at labor and how things have been handled so far, it also appears that while government oftentimes may be slow, lethargic in dealing with your situations, you also tend to adopt an entrenched position, which some would say does not help matters. We can blame government all the way, but what blame do you think labor should bear in all of this? Or is it that labor is sacrosanct? It has its hands clean on these matters? Mr. Kranchi, are you with me? Mr. Kodria?
Yes, I can hear you clearly.
It appears we don't have Mr. Kranchi. Would you like to address that situation?
No, I'm online. Hello.
Mr. Kranchi, are you with me?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, I was trying to... That question was actually meant for you. Did you get the question?
Yes, I got the question. And I'm saying that it is never the case that labor takes entrenched position.
Okay.
We are always ready for dialogue. We are always ready to discuss and have a middle ground. But to dump everything on us and then always try to play on the weaknesses of labor, we will not sit down for it as leaders. And that is why we are saying that for us, we will continue to fight for the poor worker and ensure that what is due to ordinary guys, we get it and get it right.
Mm. For you, Mr. Kodria, what do you think? Do you think your stance is completely fair on the back of what you are pushing for? Or do you think that sometimes you should be more malleable in dealing with government on these matters?
Well, the definition for malleable for us is what fits in this context. If government would adopt the approach to consult for a broader discussion before it comes up with some of these decisions, it will save us all this trouble. There's a platform created by law that engenders government and stakeholders like the Trade Union Congress to deliberate on issues like this before decisions are raised. But as long as government will ignore that provision and always decide unilaterally to do things like this, then obviously we will respond. And we can only respond when we have information that this is what is going to be done or when it happens. But let me take you back a little. That we must go through the processes. You mentioned that processes might take time before we get the needed revenue for the government. But systems and structures to success are built by processes. Let's begin to put the process mechanism in place to establish structures and systems to enhance revenue. Otherwise, this reactional measures, looking at which area we can tax that can affect everyone and get the results, would always bring this type of response. So as far as we are concerned, we think that we are not laid back until the minister confirmed on paper that this is what it intends to do. we couldn't have reacted.
Mr. Kodia, have you had any interactions with government since you adopted this stance, giving the ultimatum and all of that? Have you heard from whether the Labour Commission, the ministry, have you heard from any such outfit on this concern of yours?
Not that I'm aware of. We are yet to receive any official letter or comment from the Ministry of Finance or the Labour Department.
Right, of course, you're right. That is technically not a purely labor issue. It has to do with the finance ministry and, IMF program. But what does that communicate to you? How many days has it been?
Say again?
How many days has it been now since this ultimatum?
It's been Tuesday, Wednesday, and today, Thursday.
Okay, so 3 days. And
yes.
You've put this ultimatum out. You have a huge membership, and you've not heard any word from the finance ministry. How does that make you feel?
It's boiling our blood. We are getting excited. We are beginning to look for the red bands. And for a long time, members have not had the opportunity to demonstrate their anger and the frustration. And maybe this will be the avenue for them to vent out and let the whole world know that this is a no-no for the poor workers in this country.
So, I mean, for you, it's an either-or situation. It's either they take off the 15% planned increment on electricity tariffs via VAT, or you demonstrate, or you lay down your tools, right?
Yes, and we are also prepared to give government the alternative. I mean, sit down and let government know our proposal for the alternative in raising this. We recognize that this money must be raised. So we are also willing to offer that support and in this regard.
Okay. Before I come to you for your final words, let me go to Mr. Kranche as well. What do you make of the fact that up to this point, even with the TUC, your umbrella body, there's no response? What does that say about the responsiveness of government and its institutions in dealing with these pockets of problems when they arise?
And that is what I mentioned earlier, that sometimes you sound notices and they don't seem to care until action is taken. So we are counting the days. I am sure people in government, politicians, are busy campaigning for their re-elections and all that. Comes today. So this our noise, put it in quote, doesn't seem to touch them. But they will wait for us to now hit the road before they will please call us to meetings and want the world to think that we are insensitive. We have sounded the caution. We are waiting for their reaction. And like my senior comrade said, we are waiting and willing to engage. So if they would be minded, call us to the table for engagement, we will. But like they are saying, they will always want to wait and see whether we will do anything at all. But trust me, these are not empty threats. We will carry it to the way.
Mr. Kranche, what will be your final words for us before I end with Mr. Kodia? Final words. What can we expect from
all our members to wait patiently for our leaders as we go through these processes.
Right.
And we also want to advise government that the earlier they act on these things, the better it is for all of us.
So right now your strike is indefinite, right?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Kranche, for joining the conversation. Mr. Kodia, you have the final word. TUC Vice Chair.
Our silence wish would be that government will listen, and also government will stop this type of bringing out policies. We want government to respect the law and engage as the law requires to avoid some of these things. But as long as it decides to go on this tangent, then we will not also stop reacting. IMF has come, we accept it, but anything that they intend to achieve through their policies should not come to make the ordinary Ghanaian worse off. After all, governance is to enhance our living conditions and our economic benefits. It shouldn't reverse it. So anything in this policy or any decision from government that would seek to make the poor worker or Ghanaian worse off, Labour will resist and point government to other alternatives where such could be achieved. And I must add that we are very poised in our quest to strike and bring this country to a halt. Also, government listens.
Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining the conversation. We had, at a point, Senyo M. Ajabing, Labour consultant and HR specialist. He joined the conversation for the initial phase. Then we also had Mark Cranchey, General Secretary of TEU, and, of course, Vice Chair of the TUC, Mr. Ken Kodia. Do stay with us, because when we return from the break, there's a whole lot. We're going to be talking health matters and politics. We still have a conversation to come focused on child malnutrition and obesity. We'll be having a conversation on that with the Pediatric Society of Ghana. We also have a conversation coming up later. Of course, it's 2 days. It's Saturday, the primaries of the New Patriotic Party, the parliamentary primaries, and we'll be getting into that as well. All of that action still to come on the AM show. We'll be back.